I remember one of the first times Jeremy looked at me during a hard moment in our relationship. I knew he was frustrated with me, and I braced myself for the argument I was sure was coming. I was already playing over in my head the downward spiral and breakdown of communication that would happen. The frustration building in both of us, words said out of anger or hurt, and then, for me, a complete shutdown. I've always tended to retreat because I grew up avoiding confrontation and not knowing how to deal with conflict properly. But instead, he looked at me with something different in his eyes and simply said, "I love you." And that was it. I was a bit dumbfounded. I wish I could have seen my own face, haha. Because at that point in our marriage, we didn't really understand how to communicate our feelings or needs out of a loving place. We hadn't yet put into practice the things you'll find in this book, the guide we now offer to you. We had both experienced a lot of hurt and hard things in our relationship, as well as individually in our pasts before meeting each other. We had both gone through abuse, broken relationships, financial and family crises, along with many other life and childhood experiences that influenced the way we communicated and responded to one another. We often reacted from these places of pain because neither of us had yet experienced the healing and growth that only comes from the healer, the God of the universe. As time went on, I noticed more often that even when Jeremy was angry or frustrated, he responded in a different way. I started noticing small changes in the way he spoke to not only me, but to our kids and the people he came in contact with daily. Little differences in his actions. Small things he started doing that he had never done before. Let me say this. Jeremy was an amazing man when I first met him, or I wouldn't have married him. But there were things he, and I, needed to work on. Things we didn't know, and things I feel like God revealed to him that changed us both as individuals and as a couple. These changes saved our marriage, and now we get to share them with you and your partner. Noticing his changes made me start doing some internal evaluating. How could I be better for him? How could I love him like he was now loving me? He was different, but I didn't know exactly why or what had changed. When we made a huge move from Missouri to Texas, things really seemed to shift for us. It felt, and still feels, like God's hand was on this move, not just for our relationship, but for our individual growth as well. In this place, we found our God. We found the truest form of God's love for each other that you can experience here on earth. It brought us closer to each other and closer to Jesus. We want to share how God has worked through our decision to use our marriage as a way to worship this amazing Creator with y'all. This isn't your typical marriage book or workbook filled with tips and tricks for a happier relationship. Although if you put these ideas into practice, happiness will naturally follow as you fall in love with your spouse the way Christ loves you. This book is a heartfelt invitation to transform your marriage into a living act of worship. My husband, who is usually the more quiet and reserved partner, has poured his heart and soul into these pages you're about to dive into. He's not just offering advice, but sharing the journey we've walked together, a journey that turned our sometimes struggling relationship into a sacred space where God's presence is felt daily. The core message here is simple, yet profoundly impactful. When your marriage is rooted in the love of Christ, it becomes a reflection of God's grace and a place where His love can be seen, felt, and multiplied. As God worked in Jeremy's heart and guided him to love me as Christ loves the church, using our marriage as an act of worship, it changed everything for us. Let me tell you, this isn't always an easy road. There will be frustration, hurt you need to work through, and moments of miscommunication. Some days, you might feel like you're fighting an uphill battle and wonder if getting to the top of that hill is even worth it. I promise you, if you're holding this book, it's for a reason. I promise that if you open your heart and mind and put these practices into action, you will reach the top of that hill, intertwined with the love of your life, feeling a love you've never known before. We went from surviving, sometimes hanging by threads, stuck in patterns of miscommunication and frustration, to truly thriving with an openness we had never experienced. Every chapter in this book is a piece of that journey, a roadmap that led us from feeling disconnected and disheartened to a place of deep connection and overwhelming happiness. This isn't a quick fix. It's a daily decision, a commitment, a series of small, intentional choices that reflect the love of Christ. And let me tell you, it's worth every word, every page, and every daily decision. The results in our own marriage have been nothing short of miraculous. If you're reading this now, if this book is in your hands or on your device, I truly believe God has brought you here for a reason. Whether your marriage is already strong and you want to make it even better, or if you're feeling distant and unsure of how to bridge the gap, there is hope. The same God who transformed my marriage is ready to do the same for you. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight. But if you're willing to take that first step and invite Him into the center of your relationship, you will see a change. This book is your guide, filled with practical steps, personal stories, and spiritual wisdom to help you experience a love deeper than you ever imagined. Prayer before we start. My Father, I pray for the hearts of those reading this right now. Please open their hearts and minds as they go through these pages. Allow them to see things in a new way. Give them the perseverance and patience needed as they practice loving their spouse better. I ask that you soften the hearts of their spouses and allow for healing only you can bring. Give them the desire to share, to be open, and to work through what they need to work through. Bless them with new dreams and desires for their lives together. I ask that you use this book and my husband's heart to change and move in marriages across the world. Help us to use our marriage to always point people back to you. I thank you for who you are, for what you have done in my marriage, and I thank you in advance for the way you will show up and move in the marriages of those who are open and waiting for you. In Jesus' beautiful name, amen. Blessings on your journey. May you be open to God, the God who is love, and to your spouse. May you find the courage to love selflessly, the patience to continue, the strength to forgive, and the joy that comes from walking this path together, hand in hand with God at the center. Remember, you're not alone. God is with you every step of the way, ready to bless you and your marriage with a love that knows no bounds. We are also here, as Jeremy shares our stories, always praying for your heart and the heart of your spouse. Get ready for an incredible journey because the best is yet to come.